All right, welcome back to their Master and Apprentice video slash podcast. How you doing today, Afton?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you, Home Slice?
All right. So if you guys haven't already noticed by the thumbnail or title, we are reviewing the new Avatar movie, Avatar 2: Way of the Water. I think this is how many years in the making? 13?
13 years.
13 years in the making, and they finally made a sequel. I'm a big Avatar advocate. I think it's one of the greatest movies. The charts of it top grossing are obviously say it's a great movie, but the story is very intriguing and very similar to Star Wars in a lot of ways. So just like that, it's very universe expanding, and so it's just very intriguing. So I kind of want to start adding that content. It's still very low profile. They only have 2 movies, and that's it. All right, and it's 13 years in between, so there's not a lot of content for us to cover, but whenever there is, we're going to cover it on the channel. With that being said, we're going to cover the second movie. We're going to put a little display, spoilers. We're not going to try to spoil it, but if we need to spoil it just to kind of, get our point across and why we don't like or don't like, it's going to have to happen. But we're going to do our best not to spoil it too much. With that being said, Afton, what would you give it out of 10?
Out of 10, I'd probably go with a solid 8.5 or 9. There's not really much I don't like about a movie, but it's 3 hours, and halfway through, I have a short attention span, so that's the only thing that messes with me. I had to be like, shoot, you idiot, you're at a movie. Keep paying attention, right? They had some action scenes which were 30 minutes long, and it's like, holy crap, that was an amazing action scene. But it was still 20, 30 minutes long, and that's not a bad thing, really. That's just me having autism and not being able to pay attention. So I'd probably say a 9 out of 10, because the only thing I can really say too bad about it is the time.
I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10 as well. I liked it almost 100%. I think it was as good as the first one, if not a little bit better in some places. I like the 3 hour. For kind of give it props. It's a 3 hour movie. It's 13 years in the making. It deserves to be 3 hours. Right? They waited that long to make it. We deserve a long, good movie. If the next two are going to be, because there's supposed to be 2 more coming in the next 4 years. The next 2 or 3 hours long, you might have some people cutting loose on the attention span, but I think for this it was fine. I really loved it's 13 years apart, and so beginning of it kind of like makes you feel like what they've been doing for the last 13 years. Raising Jake and Atari's kids, right, and then explaining all their backgrounds, and it kind of like does a really good job of like this is what's been happening for the last 13 years, and then it shows the humans, the sky people coming, and it shows it's been a year of war, right? It does a really good job of for the last 13 years while the viewers have been gone, this is what's been happening in that one. That's the feel it gives you, and I really, really like that. Because sometimes movies just try to jump in or they take too long to explain things. No, they did a really good job of that. What was some things you really liked about it?
I mean, besides the visual effects, which are just insane. Like
Yeah,
some
that's
points,
a given. This is one of the most visually pleasing things I've ever seen. We saw in 3D, so that took it away from it in some spots. Because sometimes you were just so distracted by the 3D that you forgot the movie was even going on. But go ahead.
there were some points in the movie where I was like, "Oh wow, this is crazy," and then I see one of the characters, Spider, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's the only real thing that's actually on the screen right now.
Yeah.
Everything else is made up and CGI or whatever." It's insane because it feels like it's a live action movie. It really does. The plot. I mean, bringing back the past villain. I don't like when they bring other people back to life, but it makes 100% sense in this case.
Yeah,
it really does. Sometimes in Star Wars, sometimes in Marvel, they'll bring someone back to life, and it's like, okay, you just had nothing else to write. But really, it makes 100% sense that they would have had a copy of him.
Because he's not even necessarily the whole antagonist. And the previous, the Colonel, spoilers, he comes back, is the main antagonist. He's like the leader. And this one, he's not. He's the main antagonist for most of the movie, but he's not for like the overall story. And that they did a really good job with that. Some things I didn't like. I think the biggest thing was there's a story arc with the whales, and I felt like there was an agenda kind of being pushed, like animal rights kind of an agenda. And you may feel however you feel about those kind of things. I personally just don't like when things are pushed on it, especially in a movie. Thankfully, it wasn't too big of a plot thing. Like it wasn't being pushed on throughout the whole movie. But at some points, you kind of got the idea. It's like, they really want you to make sure you feel bad for these whales, right? And I thought that was kind of maybe a guilt trip for animal rights or something like that. But again, I didn't take away too much from the movie for me personally. What was something that took away for you for the movie after?
I kind of didn't. I liked it. I didn't like the relationship between the colonel and his son. I thought that was kind of weird at some points where it didn't make a lot of sense, and other points it did. And also the scientists that stayed. I mean, it's not a plot hole, but it almost feels like a plot hole. Like, how'd you have this for this long? How do you still have food? But it's probably they have some self-sustaining or whatever. But basically, there's like 3 humans that were still on Pandora for those 13 years, and it's almost like, wow,
There's
that's
more than 3 humans. There's like probably 100.
oh, I thought it was more like 10.
Yeah, there's
30
quite a few.
Okay,
They don't characterize
they're
every
not
single
main
one.
part of the plot, so they don't
Yeah,
put them in there.
there's only 3 main characters that are
Yeah.
part of the plot.
Okay. Well, I guess I won't include that then. But I mean, I did find that relationship between the colonel and his son kind of just interesting and weird at the same time. How he cared about him and didn't care about him, and the son cared about him and didn't care about him at the same time. I mean, it makes sense to an extent, but it was just kind of weird, especially the ending there. Which, if you guys watch the movie, you'll see. But the
Yeah.
ending was just weird, in my opinion.
I really enjoyed it. Visually, super amazing. Again, maybe I shouldn't have watched it in 3D. I'm probably gonna go watch it again in a week or two. Because the 3D and like just visually pleasing, it took me out of the scene sometimes, and that's kind of cool. It doesn't happen very often. The nostalgia factor, it was 10 out of 10 for that. It's like, people always talk about when Star Wars came back, it was so surreal going back to the theaters with other people and just seeing this movie been waiting for decades. And this is the same thing. It's been a decade since we've gotten it. We saw it pretty late, and so it was like a Thursday night. So there wasn't a lot of people in there. There were still, I went with a big group, and there were still other people in the theaters. But it was still very surreal, like getting that nostalgia factor. It's like, wow, no one has seen this in 13 years, and I'm one of the first people to see it. It was very surreal. It was a good moment, and I really enjoyed it for that factor as well.
Yeah. I mean, just overall, I mean, first time I watched Avatar was actually probably about a month ago, probably less than a month ago, the first movie. So I hadn't any of that nostalgic factor. But I watched that movie, and it just felt like a movie that came out a month ago. I mean, these
Yeah.
movies just seem so
It is very cool.
new.
I watched the first Avatar with my dad in theaters. That's the first movie I ever saw twice in theaters. And I was about 6 or 7 years old. It's just crazy to think that those how well they look back to back. It's very few things that cinematics can make you feel, and this is just one of those films that give you some of those rare feelings. And there's not a lot of the films that can do that. Like Star Wars can do that. Some Marvel movies can do that, but Avatar definitely did that for me. It was very, very surreal, very intriguing, just a good movie. I definitely recommend it for the viewer. I would definitely recommend, if you haven't go seen it, it's out today at this day of this recording, the 16th December. So yeah, you got anything on that? Anything else on that, Afton?
Not really. I mean, I can't wait to see the next one in 2035.
Yeah, it's the next one's supposed to come out 2025.
5?
Yeah, 2024.
2 or 3 years.
That's 2 years.
A year and a half.
Yeah, end of 2024, so probably closer to 2025, but it is supposed to come out in 2024. So we'll be reviewing that when that comes out, but let us know what you guys think if you've seen it, what you guys are excited for going forward, and all of that. With that, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.
Bye.